Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Lisa Chamet. I'm the Head of Partnerships at Charity Digital. And whilst we're waiting for others, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat box. Let us know where you are joining us from today. I will be the host for today's session for the fireside chat that we have with our amazing speakers. And I also handle the Q&A session at the end, but a very warm welcome to all of you. Whilst people are joining, just wanted to give everyone a quick intro about Charity Digital. We are a registered charity. Our mission is to help other nonprofits in the UK and beyond increase their impact with tech and digital. We do this through two main activities. The first one is providing access to the software products charities need at heavily discounted price. And the second is publishing content, whether that's articles, podcast, videos. We also run webinars, workshops, and other events to educate charity professionals and volunteers on how to make the best use of digital tools and tech. Today's session is sponsored by our friends at Onboard, and we will be discussing the best practices for conducting digital board meetings with a focus on security, communications, and collaboration. Our guests today are Kelly Van Kikuk, who is account executive at Onboard, and Claire Tavernier, who chairs the trustee board at Charity Digital. They'll explore how to manage and accelerate digital change and the best board management practice and software currently on the market to help you kind of decide a little bit what to go for. So yeah, they'll cover how to best manage digital change for your board members and how board portals can be easily used, and obviously how this can all fit with security and collaboration. Now, before I hand over to Kelly and Claire, I just want to share a few house rules. So the session is being recorded and we will upload the recording, obviously, to watch on demand within a week's time. The slides and all the other resources will also be made available to you by the end of the week. So don't worry at all if you've missed something. Closed captions are available for today's session. So to enable these, you can go at the bottom of the Zoom window in the little up arrow button and click on closed captions. So obviously during the webinar, we'd love for you to ask loads of questions in the Q&A section of Zoom for our panelists to address at the end of the fireside chat. And then feel free to share any other comments, experience, or tips in the chat section. And I can see that loads of people are sharing already some messages in the chat section. If there's any particular question in the Q&A section that you like answered, you should be able to upvote questions for them, and we'll answer them first. If you encounter any sound or image issue, please let us know in the chat. We'll do our very best to get the session back to normal ASAP, as soon as we can. Without further ado, yes, also very exciting, we're going to have some polls running, so yes, we'd love to hear from you. And now, without further ado, let me hand over to Claire Tavernier and Kelly Van Kikuk. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that introduction. That was really kind of you. Thank you for everyone joining this call today. As Lisa mentioned, I'm an account executive at Onboard, and we are very grateful for Charity Digital to allow us to sponsor this call today, or this webinar today. And we're just going to keep this as interactive and as friendly as possible. So like Lisa said, if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. We will have a Q&A afterwards if you would like to keep your questions till then, and myself and Claire will try and answer those for you as we go through. Just a brief background if nobody has heard of Onboard before. I'm going to just keep this simple. So if you haven't heard of Onboard, we are a board meeting management and governance software company, and our goal is to inspire and enable board-led organizations to do the best work in a digital world. We aim to simplify board meeting preparations, facilitate real-time collaboration, and ensure secure communication. We run a simplified platform which helps streamline meeting processes and driving board engagement, as well as helping to centralize all your documents at the same time. We create meetings, agendas, board packs, task management, action items, and store your sensitive documents in a secure location. We have organizations all around the world. We have 5,000 customers, 12,000 committees, 55,000 board meetings each year, and over 100,000 subscribers, with a couple of industries being education, healthcare, private sectors, and most importantly, charities, where most of you come from today. I deal with a lot of the non-for-profit charities, education in my sector, so I understand the nuances and the discussions I have with some of you that I've seen on the list, and hopefully to chat to you a little bit more of you in the coming months. If you would like more information, on the next slide, there are a couple of our socials that you can go and have a look at. Go into onboard meetings, request to have a chat, and we would be happy to set up a trial, a demo, or just give you a little bit of advice on how we can help, or how others could help, regarding board management and board governance. From my side, Claire, thank you for joining this call. I've dealt with some of your colleagues in the past, but you and I have never had a direct conversation until yesterday. So I'm looking forward to hearing about your expertise. You've been doing this a lot longer than I've been doing this, and you know all the background. So I'm going to keep this as simple, as friendly as possible, ask you a couple of questions, and we can just see if the audience has any questions for us. As Lisa mentioned, we do have a couple of polls, and I think we're going to start off with two of them for now. So if you don't mind just selecting an answer for us, they should pop up onto your screen now. There we go. Do you currently use a board portal? And what are your main concerns in relation to your board? So if you don't mind filling those out, we'll give that a couple of seconds. We'll wait for the results, and then we will just jump into the conversation with Claire. While we are waiting on that, I just wanted to let one more thing. No, I've got my colleague Natalie on the call today. So if you do have any questions that pop up while we are having a conversation, and you want to ask them straight away, please type them into the chat. And if she can answer them, she will just type those back to you. If not, I can have a read of them at the end and try and answer those for you. So I thought I didn't get to see the results on that. I needed to say those out loud because for the recordings, we don't get to see those. But Lisa, I didn't see those. But if you're happy with me just to carry on, I will do so with Claire. So welcome, Claire, again. Once again, thank you very much for joining the call today. Let's start with a fairly simple one. Would you like to give a quick overview of the boards you currently sit on and your roles on them?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. I am the chair of two charities, and I'm also a trustee of a third one. So I have a sort of fairly wide range of visibility over different sized charities, which hopefully can be helpful. The first charity I'm the chair of is Charity Digital, actually. So I've been, there are the results.
Yeah.
Should I stop and you want to talk about the results briefly, and then I'll come back?
Yeah, I'm just going to read them out loud, just so I let the audience know. Like when we record these, we don't get those. So if anybody is watching them in the future, we can't actually see the results. So do you currently use a board portal? 11% say yes, and 89% say no. So that's an overwhelming favorite to the no. And what are your main concerns in relation to your board? So um, end user ability, security, time, and all of the above. Not surprised of the all of the above answer there, Claire. I think people take all of those fairly seriously: time, security, and end user usability. So thank you for your answers, everybody. I do appreciate that. And sorry, Claire, let's get back into it again.
No problem at all. So I'm the chair of Charity Digital. I have been the chair for 4 years, and we started using Onboard, I think, because we were working with you anyway. And so we've been using on the Charity Digital board. We've been using Onboard for quite a few years. I also am the chair of the Film and TV Charity, which is a charity that looks after people who work behind the scenes in the film and TV industry. And we've recently started using Onboard, and that was one of the things I brought on when I came in as chair. So I can talk a little bit about that. And then I'm a trustee of a smaller charity called Institute of Imagination, which is a brilliant charity that works in the educational sector and faces perhaps slightly different challenges, and perhaps challenges that will be familiar to some of the people who are attending today, which are more to do with being quite a small charity with fairly limited resources. And then we don't use a board management software at all.
Perfect. Thank you, Claire. And then just on that question, with those charities, or let's say the three of them, are you creating board packs? Are you doing both? Are you setting up meetings within those organizations, or are you just an end user, or do they differ on all three?
The execs tend to be creating the board packs and
Yeah.
scheduling. So I'd say I'm an end user, probably
End
more
user,
than
perfect.
anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. I just wanted to double check and just get so people know what you do. Perfect. And so let's talk about the film and TV charity, because that's the latest one that you joined a board governance for. So how was your experience transitioning to a board management software for the TV and charity film? Just what were you doing, and what was your experience, and how did you get there, and what were the challenges?
So what we were doing before, I think, like many other charities, was that the execs would send the board pack as a collection of a lot of documents, numbered to help. And in the case of the film and TV charity, we all have our own trustee charity email address within the organization for security reasons, so that we're not sending confidential documents to unmonitored addresses. And so all the trustees would receive an email a couple of weeks before the board meeting, or a week before the board meeting, with a lot of attachments. And then, they would hopefully read them, and we would then discuss them at the board meeting. And there was a few complications. The first one was that for a lot of the trustees, they don't check their charity email address that often, because it's yet another email address to check. And so there was a sort of fairly two-level system. And again, I think this is quite typical, where the execs would send an email to their non-charity email address saying, please check your charity email address to check that you've seen the documents. And then once we got into the meeting, we all had those 5 or 6 or 12 PDF documents opened, and trying to navigate which one was next, etc., was slightly more complicated. And then the other problem is, for me personally, and I don't know if this isn't something I've discussed with the other trustees, so this is more of my end user experience, was that after the board meeting, if you need to refer back to any of these documents, you have to go back through your email, find the specific email with that document, and then go back to it. And there, it's slightly less easy. And we didn't really have an easy place to store governance documents, to store things, reference documents, trustee induction documents, etc. So based on my experience with the board management softwares at Charity Digital, I strongly encouraged, as you can do when you're chair, the team to implement a board management software, and they looked into it and looked at the various options and chose one. And I think overall it was a very, very smooth transition, and the trustees absolutely love the new system. It's 100% better for most of them. A lot of them use an iPad, and so they've downloaded the app and they just see the documents there and they can flick through. A lot of them make notes directly in the documents when they're reading the papers. They've all expressed how much better it's been for them as an experience. It's much more user-friendly. They found it much easier to connect. They have access to the papers afterwards. The execs are able to switch out. If there's a newer version of a paper, they can do that quite quickly or upload a new version. We're still investigating some of the other functions, but just that is very helpful. And we've started storing some of the more general documents on this as well. The main barrier for the organization was cost, if I'm honest. And it's not a small organization, but it's not a very large charity. And the way these software packages are priced, it's per seat. And so if you have a fairly large board, or if you want more than one exec to be on it, it starts adding up quite quickly. And so there was a barrier, which was, do we want to invest that much money just in making things slightly easier for trustees? And that's a question that I can't answer, and it's going to come down to every charity. And for instance, on the Institute of Imagination, which is a much smaller charity, it just wouldn't be sustainable, and they can't afford it. I think they would love to have one, but they can't afford it. Certainly not at the moment. So yeah, I think the implementation was fairly easy. You have to get all the trustees to sign in, and they have to realize that it's a better system. But usually, certainly what's happened there is once they've logged in once, they're like, oh yeah, this is so much better. Thank God we have that. And then that's it. And that you've crossed that barrier. Our exec teams have been very happy to use it. Similar experience at Charity Digital, actually. I mean, you would expect that from a charity that's meant to be, pushing digital solutions, but there was really no technical barrier to it. So very easy. So I would say the only thing that sort of made us pause was the cost. Sorry, that was a very long answer.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Claire. And while I was thinking of that, you're saying the main barrier is the budget, and we come across that a lot. We know in the charity world, they're all trying to do good in their specific charities and around the world, and you've always got to weigh up that, is this going to save me time? Is this going to save me money? But what can I do with that money? If I don't have that, can it go to somewhere else? So it's always a difficult decision with the smaller charities, and we come across that quite a lot. Sorry to throw a curveball here, Claire. Just one more question I wanted to ask. Something that we come across a lot in the charity world is end users not really wanting change. So from going from an email,
I'm very surprised.
so even maybe coming, people still wanting to post and do it via the post. We still get those conversations that day. Did you have any pushback, and was it a matter of, this is the way we're going, you're going to have to jump on board and we will guide you through this process? Did you have any sort of pushback like that in any of your organizations?
Not really on the trustee side. I think some of the well, so no is the answer, but I think we are probably not entirely representative. So the Charity Digital trustees are all fairly digitally minded, as you would expect, and the film and TV digital film and TV charity trustees are all relatively media savvy, as you would again expect, and so they may not be the most representative of trustees. I will say, certainly on the film and TV side, and this was different it was interesting. The charity digital trustees tend to be all on PC or laptops or whatever, Macs, and that's how they access the documents. Whereas you could see that in the film and TV, it was iPads, and I think the fact that it was iPads made it easier. They were much more comfortable with that than, for various reasons, I don't know. So I think they were past that level. We were already very much in a world where they had the papers electronically anyway. So the only difference was, instead of having a million attachments, they had one place where it was all clean and laid out. So I think perhaps we some of that pain had already come through. I think sometimes there was a little bit more resistances in the finance and governance teams in the charities that they, as you know, charities are always under resourced and they're always doing a million things. And there was a sort of initial like, oh, another thing we have to learn, another thing we have to work through. We had a system and it kind of worked. So weirdly, that's perhaps where there was a little bit more, wouldn't say resistance, but sort of questioning. But again, I think once it was implemented, they were quite happy with this. But this is something that happens in charities. It's the trustees may not be digitally, as digitally aware as you'd hope, and sometimes also the staff, because that's not their background, that's not what they do, and they have ways of doing that they've done for very long. So that was a little bit, that's the only sort of semi, and I wouldn't even call it a resistance, but a bit of but it was kind of working. Are you sure you want to break it? Kind of reaction. Yeah,
change is always difficult, right, and scary. If something is working, it's hard to sometimes go, oh, let's change this. This is going to streamline
especially
up.
If you're working you're working to tight deadlines, tight budgets, tight schedule, and you've got a lot on your plate already as execs of charities. And so that's just another thing, and that sometimes can be a little bit scary as a first step, but hopefully once it's there, it's helpful.
Yeah, and I think all the vendors out there that are doing this board governance, they're there to hold your hand anyway. There shouldn't be, it should be, here's the product, let me walk you through this, we can do some training and stuff like that. Like we said, change is difficult, but once you do it for a couple of weeks, you will forget how you were doing it before. So and it's not just in the charity world.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's true. Actually, it was interesting. Just because we've just gone through it, the film and TV charity, we had a wonderful sort of admin person who just decided to own it, and she went for it, and she did and I think that helped, just to have somebody who she was just really into trying to make it work, and so she ended up making sure that everything was there and sending test texts and checking that everything was working and chasing people for their registration, and all this little bit of work you have to do at the beginning to make it work, and also investigating the different other possibilities of the software, and checking what else they could do, etc. So it really helped to have that one person who championed it internally.
Yeah, that always helps. And then I had a look back. I think it was around February when you started with us on that. Have you seen any benefits so far? I know you've mentioned security, time saving, and the usability. Have you seen any outstanding benefits from it at the moment in the last, where are we now, 3, 4, 5 months since you started using it? I know you used it at Charity Digital before, but with that specific charity.
Yeah, I think for us it was less about security, because we already had that sort of internal email system which felt relatively secure. It really is 100% around convenience and giving the trustees the most the best chance to read the papers. And that's what you want ultimately from your trustees. You want them to have read the papers and have had time to analyze them and have made notes and then be able to contribute. And I think that's what we're seeing is, I wouldn't say we didn't have, obviously we had great quality conversations at the board, but the feedback I've had from other trustees has been that it's just made their life easier. And I think for us, it's made, the trustees have said, it's so much faster. I'm not wasting time figuring out which one I need to open at what point. It's all there. And therefore it's much easier for me to read them, to comment, to make myself notes. and then I know what I'm referring to in the meeting. So I think it has also, I would say, because of the way it's laid out, it's also forced perhaps the execs to be a bit more structured in their agenda setting and everything, which is not a bad thing necessarily, although they were already quite structured, but it's reinforced that. So yes, I would say that that's the feedback that I've had. But again, this was an audience that was prepped for it. One, they didn't like the way it was done before, and two, they were already fairly digitized. So it's not going to be, there will be situations where the barriers are much, much larger.
Yeah, and I think especially in the charity world, to drive engagement is a big plus. You've got a lot of people helping out who sit on multiple boards like yourself. You're very busy doing a lot of different things, and just to have that ease of use and engagement to go, okay, let me have a quick read through this, and you can make notes and take it to the meeting, just so everyone's engaged within that meeting. I think we get a lot of frustrated execs who do all this work and people pop onto the meeting and they're like, oh, you didn't read it. So just to drive that engagement just a little bit, it's good to hear that we have helped you on that side of things, Claire.
Yeah, absolutely. And but again, I think you are absolutely right to point out that some people are still very much paper based, and maybe there's a transition phase in order to get to that. But certainly for us, it was the right time and it worked very well.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And then recommendations. What recommendations would you give to other charity boards who aren't currently using? We saw the poll earlier. There's obviously quite a lot on this chat that aren't currently using it. Again, we understand there might be a lot on this regarding budget, and we understand that, but just taking the budget side out of it, which is a little bit difficult, what is your best recommendations on transitioning to using a board portal?
I think it's having, I think it's worth thinking about, are there barriers currently to people reading your board papers and having access to them easily? And then if there are, that this may be a really interesting fix, but sometimes there aren't. I think there'll be charities where this isn't necessarily the way forward, and that's completely fine. But what I've seen in not only these three charities but others is a lot of very busy trustees who are, not paid for what they're doing and volunteer their time and want to do well, but have limited resources, and whatever you can do to make their life easier and simpler is going to benefit your board. So I think if it comes up, and you see it in board meetings, you see people going like, which paper are we talking about now? Is it appendix 13B or 13C? And once you start having people shuffling lots of things or peering onto small TV screens, etc., or TV, computer screens, all right, then you think, oh, this is slowing things down and this isn't great. Or a lot of what we had as well is, I couldn't open this attachment, or there would be a new version of the paper which would come 2 days later, and now you have one email with 13 attachments and another one that's come with 12, and you're just trying to figure out which one is which. There were all these things that actually aren't huge, but are just additional steps in the process that create barriers. So if this sounds familiar, and this was my experience on both of the chair roles where we used the on board, that was the situation before. So if this sort of frustration sounds like something that you experience on your boards, then I would say board management software would be very helpful. And don't underestimate the value of these document storage place where any trustee can go and find our governance documents, find the trustee induction packs that they may have read 3 years ago but don't really remember anymore, and everything is there and easy, and previous board papers, which is very helpful when you have a board update on a project and you want to go back to see what was presented at the previous board. for me at least, that's something that is very helpful to be able to do seamlessly. I used to have a whole system where I would save everything into folders on my computer and everything. I've saved a lot of money on storage space.
Storage space, yeah, absolutely. I wanted to just touch on the time saving aspect, Claire. Obviously that's more from an admin point of view, creating meetings, creating board packs, etc. And something that you touched on is last minute changes, which we get real positive feedback from, like you mentioned before, and what we spoke about posting. I spoke to somebody the other day that she currently posts her documentations, her board packs out. And I said, well, what happens if you've unfortunately made a mistake? She's like, I got to do it all again. I got to reprint it, post it, send it back out. And then they'll get their board pack again. And I was like, okay, that's a lot of time, a lot of effort. I know it's not overly expensive, but still posting costs some sort of a fee to carry on doing that. So I liked what you mentioned about last minute changes. Do you have a lot of last minute changes leading up to your board meetings? Would you be able to email and go, I need this to be changed, and then that changes automatically and it's there for you?
I wouldn't say we have lots of last minute changes. That would be great. But sometimes, as you say, some things change, or there's a slightly updated version of the slides, or some new data comes in. So it does happen. I would say it happens at least for one of the pack elements, for at least one for every board meeting. It's not 5 different things. It's just one pack that needs to be switched over. It just makes it easier. It worked before. But this makes it seem more seamless, I think, for people, because then there's still one pack and it's still all together in a way that's easy for people to go through. It works for us.
Claire, did you use SharePoint previously? Is that what you were using before February, or was it?
So internally, the organization used SharePoint. The trustees, we could have set up a SharePoint for the trustees, but we hadn't. So there wasn't a shared folder system for the trustees, partly because many of them didn't access their charity email address very regularly. So yes, SharePoint does a lot of document management things and it does it very well. So it's just a little bit different. It doesn't do the meeting management, but it also, and often it's included in your Microsoft subscription. So from a cost perspective, it makes a lot of sense if you can use either, if you have a good Google Drive system. Google Drive is quite messy, but some organizations seem to make it work in terms of making it properly accessible to everybody, or if you have a really good solid SharePoint infrastructure. But then in my experience, those two, Google Drive and SharePoint, are slightly less user-friendly. They're easier because people are already logged in, but they're slightly less user-friendly. So if you have a slight barrier in terms of people being digital, it's not quite as straightforward. On the other hand, it's already included very often in your whatever you're paying for your services. So it might be worth investigating as well.
Yeah, so thanks for answering that. I was just reading a question while we were going and just throwing it in there. So it was something from Melanie, I think it was from, just asking, SharePoint does that for her already, and she was looking, does it help you with your strategic objections? Do you do strategic objections at the moment?
Objectives. I think objectives. We don't do strategic objections.
Yeah.
We have strategic objectives. We have dashboards. They're kept separately from Onboard. Onboard is very much a meeting management system for us. It manages our board meetings. It doesn't track performance. It doesn't. Those are. An update will be provided in the board papers, but it's not integrated into any sort of dashboard. Those we also have, but they're kept separate.
Yeah, and that's something I can get into with Melanie later on how we can integrate that or help in the certain questions. So that was what I wanted to touch base with you on, Claire. So I thank you for answering those questions and being upfront about, costings, what the product does for you, how it helps you, your transition into using a board management platform. So I think, Lisa, if you would like, I could see some of the questions on the side, but I can't see the Q&As. I'm just trying to keep to the
Yeah.
time here for you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
I saw Melanie's one in the chat, but I didn't see in the
Yeah.
Q&As. I did
Yes.
see one from somebody regarding on board will provide the session without needing to book it. Basic costs. I can have a conversation. It is on the charity digital website.
Yes.
So I won't
Absolutely.
be discussing pricing today on this call, but happy to engage with anybody who would like to have that conversation. I can send them a basic indicative pricing, but I
Yeah.
won't be discussing actual pricing on this call today.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And then we can always, always send a little bit more details that can be found on our website. A little bit more details around that and the specific features. Obviously, we talked about on board, but I think the conversation, which was really interesting, was also quite quite eye-opening in terms of the different challenges that boards can encounter, board members can encounter in making sure that the meetings happen in a timely manner. Obviously, I recall this, it can be sometimes a bit of a challenge to make sure that everybody reads, has all the information on time, reads it on time, if there's any change, etc. So yeah, and it's been really, really interesting to attend this. There's obviously had a couple of questions, but please, for all of our attendees today, please do feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A section at the moment. So I had a question for Claire, actually, because obviously you've been speaking with, well, you are part of three different boards of three different organizations. In your opinion, what has been the most helpful and or game-changing feature of using a portal, whether that's on board or any other type of portal, would say?
I think it's it's two things. It's the ease of use during the meeting. That's something that people have said a lot. It's just easier. But I know that some charities have board packs that are already formatted in one document, and it's so again, it depends a little bit about where you are in your organization, etc. But in the organizations that I have worked with, having a board management software really simplified access to the documents before and during the meeting. So I would say that's the main thing. I think at the end of the day, that's what made it really easy. It's just very easy to access, very easy to annotate if you want to do that, and then very easy to go back to during the meeting and see your notes, etc. So of course, lots of different ways you could do this otherwise, but it really worked, and it worked for this audience of trustees. And then for me, additionally, the advantage, which again you can get through by other means, is the repository of old presentations, being able to go back,
notes,
being able to go back to the previous finance pack or to the finance committee minutes from like a couple of meetings ago, all seamlessly, while without really having to look for them. That for me was very helpful. So for us, it worked in terms of bringing together all of these functionalities in a fairly user-friendly wrapper, as it were, that people could access without having to be logged onto a Microsoft account, which I know it doesn't sound like a huge barrier, but if you're already on another Microsoft account for work, or for other charities, it's just, it just gets quite complicated to have more than one, as I've realized. So, they're just trying to remove barriers. So that's worked quite well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right there. It's all about time. Sometimes many of the trustees sit on different boards and they have their they do that on a volunteer basis, so they also have
Yeah.
things going on in their professional lives, etc. So it's all about being, very concise and very user friendly. But yeah, thank you for that. There was also another question, because obviously there was, and I think also somebody said in the chat, the challenge sometimes is to communicate the benefits of going digital to board members who are used to doing a certain way. And even if it's having SharePoint, and perhaps the board members don't want to leave SharePoint, they're very happy with that.
Okay.
So how do you, would you say you communicate? Perhaps Kelly first, and then Claire, you can answer too. Perhaps is there a timeline to introduce slowly? What would you say, Kelly?
Yeah, I think I was going to comment on that. I think I saw it was Paul Cartwright that mentioned, and I agree with him 100%. And I'm sorry, Paul, that we made it sound easier than it is. My biggest challenge talking to prospects and in customers is a lot don't have laptops, online services, smartphones, and stuff like that. I agree with you. It's a hard one to get around if somebody doesn't have those. Being a digital platform, it's pretty hard to get them to do that. But what we have tried to do with our platform specifically is just make it as simple as possible for people who are just starting out on an iPad or even a mobile phone. You get these board management platforms in iOS and Android 99.9% of the time. So we would never give a product and just let you go off. We would give you a customer success manager for a year that does one-on-one training, board management training, that they can just sit through and help those people just try gauge on how easy it can be. And again, Paul, that isn't always the easiest thing to do, because some people just don't want to do it. So I agree with the sentiment and the comment that you're making. It is a challenge, but something I said the other day, once upon a time we didn't use mobile phones or we didn't use emails, and we were able to move over to that. So it's just trying to get that specific person or people just to try it out and see how easy it can be. But I agree with your sentiment. It's not an easy objective to get over.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite challenging, and we I think we also have some resources on how to some that our content team has written around getting buy-in really, and getting people to move towards digital, and more importantly understand their concerns, sometimes very valid, and being able to address that, and slowly, little by little, get them well on board. So there's obviously another question which is more around a comparison with Microsoft Teams. I don't know if you perhaps want to take that one offline, because it might be a little bit different. So David's question is around the Microsoft team offers and what what it can do in terms of meetings. I don't know if you want to take that one, Kelly, or take that offline.
Yeah, just what's my sorry, I'm just reading through this. I might have to come back to you on this one, David. Just drop you a note on that file storage.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we integrated with Microsoft Teams. So we have that integration. So when you are having a meeting, that meeting would pop, the agenda and your board pack would pop up at the same times. As that, the KPI and analytic dashboard is something we're more just a governance platform to create your agendas and meetings and stuff like that. Automated creation of minutes. David, the $1 million question that comes up over and over and over again. I'll be happy to tell you that we have just acquired an organization who are a little bit ahead on the automated minutes side of things, and we are
Oh,
working
interesting.
with it, and it's on our roadmap. It's a question I have in every meeting is, can we get the minutes automated? It would save me heaps and heaps of time.
Of time.
So David, we don't have that yet. You would still have the transcript from like your Microsoft Teams that, pulls out what is being said. Some of the challenges you have with that is if people have hybrid meetings, if they don't have their laptops in front of them, who's actually saying what in a meeting if you have sort of accents that are fairly similar. So, David, is something that we are working on. And then I just saw you write world-class security free for charities. I'm not sure what that means. Our security is second to none. We don't have really any problems with our security. I can share a link to our trust center, which identifies all of that kind of stuff. If I've missed anything or misunderstood that, David, I'm happy to chat with you offline and answer any
Yeah.
of those questions.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kelly. And then there was also a question around integration. So Graham was asking is whether Onboard integrates with Google as well, as well as Google
Unfortunately,
Meet.
Unfortunately, we don't
Okay.
integrate with Google. No, you
Mm-hmm.
can create meetings from the platform, but you'd
Mm-hmm.
have to do that manually. So we integrated with Zoom and with Teams. I think Andrew asked that question. Yes, I think this might be for you, Claire, but he said, do you still need to use Teams and Zoom when
Teams and
using
Zoom.
Onboard? So the answer, I can answer that. That is yes. So we are integrated with that. It automatically sets up the
Creates
meeting on
meetings.
which ones you choose. We don't have our own meeting platform within
Gotcha.
Onboard.
Okay, well, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. And yeah, if anybody has any other question, please feel free to pop that in the Q&A section now. But yeah, we're seeing loads of interesting tips and experience in the chat, so it's really positive. I believe. Yeah, sorry, Kelly, you wanted to say
Yeah,
perhaps something?
sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just reading through it. I think Graham asked, do you need to log through the Onboard platform? I don't know if that was regarding the pricing he was chatting to Natalie about, but yes, you would always need to log in through an
Mm-hmm.
Onboard portal where you would put in your security. If you have two-factor authentications and stuff like that, you would still log through the Onboard platform. That's correct, Graham.
Super. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much to both. I believe we may have a final poll, perhaps. I'm not sure. I know we've had a few tech issues. Apologies to everybody. But yeah, I don't know if we are able to. I think there was one last. Oh, yes, yes. So yes. So if people are interested, because we saw some couple of people asking some specific questions. So if you'd like to learn more about how Onboard can help your board and your organization, yeah, please you can answer.
Yeah.
And we've got plenty of content which is available to everybody on our website around board management, the role of trustees, and how trustees can be also empowered to drive digital in the organization. So yes, it will. What we'll do is that we will add a couple of these links to our articles alongside the resources for the recording, so you have everything in one place.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Lisa.
brilliant, brilliant. So yes, I believe that the poll has now ended. So thank you very much, and that enables me to wrap up. So thank you very much, Claire and Kelly, for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
It's been great. Yeah, yeah, likewise, and thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you.
It's been great having you all joining us today. As you will see, there will be a little pop-up asking you for your feedback, what you thought of the session today. So please leave your feedback, be as honest as possible, as we love to hear that, to understand what we need to do to continue provide, great qualitative webinar for all of you. So yes, so hopefully you'll see that in the link in the chat. Sorry, you'll see that link in the chat. And as we said, the slide and other resources will be made available to all of you very shortly, so you can share with your colleagues and with your fellow trustee members. All that to say that in terms of upcoming event, we have quite a few workshops and summits over the next few weeks. The first one is the Digital Inclusion Summit, which is a free online summit about digital inclusion, digital accessibility. So it's on the 20th of June. So please do join if you are able to, even if it's just a couple of hours during the day. We are sure that you will find loads of interesting takeaways. We also have a couple of workshops, step-by-step guide to managing financial budgets, another one about mastering data storytelling with Microsoft. You'll be able to find loads more information about all our upcoming events on our website as well, so you can browse. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much all for your time today. We do hope you found that fireside chat insightful, that he's given you a couple of pointers to share with the rest of your senior leadership team or your board members. And we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.